Hey guys, welcome back. Thursday, getting a little late jump. You know, I can't wait for this week to be over, guys. It's supposed to be our second week of shutdown. Nope, not for me, man. It is busy as crap. It's like I'm going into work. There's barely anyone there, and I'm too damn busy. So we did get to leave before 4 o'clock, so that was a good thing. But had to do things here. End up having to do the weed whacking and the mowing of the lawn. A couple other things. Then I had to take a shower. And oh my gosh, now it's after 8 o'clock and I'm finally getting around and talking to you guys. So, I couldn't find anything that's like splashy. There's probably some little wins for America First News here. I know there's one subscriber in particular that has golden nuggets. So if he, most likely he will reply and put a comment below. And perhaps we'll do a video of whatever he puts in there next for tomorrow, for the next show. So, I'll give you a couple of things that I see or saw, I should say, that it's kind of like, what do I want to comment on? But so you know how, oh wait, there's a list? No, there's no list. No, maybe there's a list. Come on, man. Do you guys know what you're doing over there? Yeah, I think I could function pretty good in Washington D.C. as long as I don't have to be blackmailed, right? Like, I think almost all of our politicians, whether they did the funny business or not, I think they're being blackmailed, whether they're squeaky clean or not. I think corruption is part and parcel of that system, and I think some people just have more than others, and they're all being manipulated and blackmailed. And I think that's why this supposed list, alleged list, that may existed, may not have existed. That's all I'm talking about. That's it, guys. I saw something and I'm like, there's that. However, I'll give you a little bit of a market update too, because, again, it's not 100% America First News, but we live in the United States and we have to, unfortunately, make money, and we're trying to stretch all of our money. And these are also important data points that even if you don't really invest a lot of money, right, it's good to know when the proverbial bust is coming, right? We want to make sure our ass is not in the street, all right? Maybe we need to separate ourselves from certain individuals so that they can get hit. Anyway, so, so the biggest news is that crypto, Bitcoin in particular, hit an all-time high. But let's kind of go back and review. The 10-year treasury is flat. It didn't do anything today. So that's good. It's still at 4.35. And the dollar did eke up in value a little bit. So it's good that it's not going down. I don't know how long this is going to last, guys. Now, if they cut short-term interest rates, it may just stay right here. So we'll see. We'll see. The overall, so I'll call it Wall Street. SPY made barely a gain. Let's see what the other ones do. Dow Jones Industry Index. That gained a little bit more. And let's see here. Do I have the Russell? Let's see here. Dow Jones. Nah, I don't. Unfortunately, I don't. But anyway, gold looks like it kind of was flat. It did gain a little bit. Actually, it's percentage-wise, gold and silver added the same amount. Or I'm sorry, I'm losing it. SPY in gold, percentage-wise, gained the same amount. SOV silver just spiked up for, I'll kind of say for no apparent reason. I mean, it didn't really spike up, but on a percentage basis, it went up. What is that percentage basis? 2 point, yeah, 2.25 on a percentage basis. That's actually pretty good for silver on one particular day. So it's not at an all-time high, but again, it's peaking that multi-year high. Technicals look good, so keep your eye on that. And good news. Hey, remember I told you all my miners got killed? They made everything back. Everything's back to normal for the most part. Let me see here. My biggest Newmont, that's, yeah, back up there. They're a big royalty company. Eagle Mining, that's not much different. Barrick, they're gargantuan. Barrick Mining Corp. Let's see here, and then we got Wheaton. Yeah, Wheaton Precious Metals. They're another big company. Looks like they've pared back. I got another smaller one, Mag Silver Corp. They're pretty much at an all-time high, and then my little laggard, First Majestic. That's the one that lost 8% in one day, and now it's right back to where it was. So I am trying to I'm trying to exit that trade. I'm still actually down in that. So that's kind of, but all my other ones are significantly up. So, I mean, I could pull more profits out. And I think I told you guys before, those actually have dividends. So the dividends aren't that high because the prices are actually high right now. So it's not like I need the money right now, so we just want to keep it in there and get dividends, right? So, okay, all right. I'll call it next. What other things that I'm trying to remember what they were, guys. I had something in mind, and I lost the thought a little bit here. Yeah, that's awkward when I lose that. So, when it comes to America First, I may deviate a little bit because America First is kind of a pretty. In honesty, it's a pretty vague terminology. We all don't share the same. Obviously, right? We all don't. But in particular, I've noticed America First / MAGA. There's a lot of diverse backgrounds, and it's actually the communists would be very upset. But we actually have various viewpoints. So one of the things that I want to kind of maybe put here today, since I'm trying to remember the damn idea that I had, but we won't, is I call it the communists. What am I talking about, the communists? Well, depending on I have, it just hiccuped again, guys, so hopefully this thing's still working every time. Every time. I don't know what the hell it is, guys. I think it's my computer just lagging a little bit, and it just happens on the camera all the time. But the communists, over 60 years ago, they convinced a subsection of our population, aka our, at one time, beautiful women, that they don't necessarily need the opposite sex. So they convinced more than I think at this point now we have at least 3 generations that have been infected by this virus, which is called feminism. I think they call it third wave. I don't know. Is it fifth wave, fourth? I don't count these things. I think like first wave feminism was technically the Susan B. Anthony, to get the stuff, women's suffrage to get them the vote type of thing. I won't necessarily be a disagreeer with that per se. But I do understand why, because women sometimes just use their emotions to make their decisions, right? So at a high level, we don't necessarily want to make decisions only based on emotions, because you might get pissed off one moment and then you wait the next day and you might actually do something that you regret later. So we need to have, a little bit of balance in there. Obviously, we don't want to just make hard decisions without, like a robotic system, right? So it's always a balance. But again, getting back to this. So I call feminism communism. It's just one more tentacle in. And to be honest, it's really been an attack. I mean, this stuff was actually done during the Cold War. Multiple psyops were done on this country. And to be honest, it was actually for more Western-ish concepts, and that terminology has kind of morphed over time. Recently, or I'll call it modernity, thinks it's more about American. No, that's not that. Perhaps because we'll call it the current holder of the baton. But westernized thinking goes all the way back to Greco-Roman times. In particular, essentially, if you really want to get down to it, Greco. A lot of the concepts that were forged, all over Europe for the most part, and North Africa, the British Isles, that all came from that thought, right? To be honest, Socrates, there's a reason why there was, things being called Rhodes Scholar. There's a little island, and that's actually where some of the philosophy schools of that era, right? So it's a long and rich tradition. And obviously, we've been morphing and changing and this and that, right? But that's what the communists, at a high degree, they'll use anything to trick, right? And to be honest, even though communism failed, in particular the USSR, because they collapsed in the early 90s. Shortly, I actually think the Berlin Wall was the catalyst of that. That was the what do they call it? Like the announcement, right? The herald, if you will, right? The herald of what is coming, right? But all that work was laid during the 60s, right? You had the feminism. You also had the significant protests against Vietnam. Obviously, there was some more green roots. There was some legitimate, concerns or why some of those protests could have came up, but I don't want to call it the violent protest, right? But the significant pushback, a lot of that was bred on U.S. campuses, colleges in particular. And that's how it got started and sprouted. So those seeds were placed. And I'm trying to remember the Russian guy that talked about it. But getting it back to the communism just morphed, guys. It's always been here. It has not the outward appearance, especially of the USSR, which now is Russia. It's no longer communist, right? But there's a lot of, we'll call it old Russia before it was communist, right? And then it turned communist, and then it's now what it is now. And it's almost a blend of the two. They no longer have that outward appearance of the communist. And then you have China, which is just, to be honest, the Chinese system wasn't much different than the Soviet system. But it was just a little bit different. It tailored to its own. And then that turned more into what they would call Maoism, which, essentially just killed over, 50 million people inside the country because they basically chased all the farmers away and they put people on the land that didn't know how to farm. Well, guess what? That made food almost disappear, and you had people just starving to death during the fifth. I think it was like the mid 50s going into, I think maybe even to like the beginning of the 60s. But millions of people died, and not to gunfire, not to just someone thought it was a good idea, and millions of people died. And we still have communism China. They have morphed their communism with a perception of capitalism. So what they ended up doing was opening their market. You guys that are older enough to remember, I believe it was Nixon with Kissinger during I think it was the early 70s, either 70, 71. They made an agreement. Part of that was to combat Soviet Russia. So, we kind of wanted, China to do like its little thing. But anyway, they morphed theirs. They don't have 100% communism, right? There's a lot of state businesses. There's a lot of things that are still run by the state. But individuals can kind of have a little bit of money, and there's kind of this perceived capitalism, right? Like even over here in the United States, we don't have capitalism as much as the leftists, the Democrats, and the communists, because they're all the same. They believe we have best scenario, we have what's called corporatism, crony corporatism. Capitalism was hijacked to benefit the large corporations, right? So to be honest, we do have a very weird situation where we have communism in China with a little bit of capitalism over there, and we have, free markets, right? With a little bit of communism stuck in there, right? Like, is this what the New World Order, the the World Economic Forum, they wanted this mishmash and kind of, get everyone and kind of push them to one side? But I say, hell no, get rid of it. No, we gotta purge it out. So, kind of a little bit of history lesson there for you guys, huh? What do you guys think on some of these things, right? I mean, these things were done, like I said, like especially like the Nixon Kissinger thing. Ironically enough, almost in that same time frame. I think it was a little bit. I'm trying to remember exactly. Because you had the Nixon close the gold window in 1971. So you had all these kind of big things happen, kind of like right before I was born, right? Because then you had the oil embargo, right? And then the other thing that Kissinger ended up doing was, again, it's not 100% agreement, but we somehow convinced Saudi Arabia to sell its oil not just to the United States, but to other countries in U.S. dollars. So that helped us to basically export inflation to other countries. I know, it's really weird. But yeah, getting back to to how I started down this path here, and we're almost at 20 minutes, so we don't want to keep you any longer than you need to. I still got a couple things I gotta get done here. But yeah, the next time you hear strong and independent, that is a communist trope. If you hear like through the lens, that's another communist. And if you look for this stuff, it's kind of everywhere. So even some of the things that may even be kind of sound like American. They're really not. So yeah, put down other area. Put down below, guys. What other things that you think are that have changed, morphed from communist ideals into kind of a clouded area that we're still combating to this day. And I will leave you with the words of what my father said, even when, I'm trying to remember, man. I think I was like 10 years old. I don't know. I think that was like 1983 or 84 or something like that. I call that the golden era of America, or at least that I remember. One of our greatest presidents, Ronald Reagan, was president. Definitely very good pride in America at that time. Even the people that came over here from other countries were very proud to be American. They felt honored. When they came here, they made a very good effort into learning the language, the cultures. And a lot of them did show their culture here, but they understood that they were in a different country. They came here. They were true. They were escaping true persecution, and when they came here, they felt totally gratified. I wish, I wish the people that have been coming here have been that gracious at that point. Anyway, that's besides the point. But getting back to where I started here, my father basically said, we have to defeat communism. It must be destroyed. That's what he said. And to be honest, I think when I heard it and he was talking to me about certain things, it was almost like he wasn't necessarily talking to me. He was just like talking. I don't know if he was talking to himself, to me, or just like he was uttering it to the universe. Because I remember, because he didn't look, you know how you talk and you look. He was to be talking. It was kind of like he just went like this, and even though I was there and I'm looking at him, and that's how he said it, and I will remember that. We may or may not at an individual level be able to do much, right? But together we can, and it doesn't have to be a physicality. It does not have to be weapons, guns, and actual physical violence. But communism must be destroyed. It must be identified for what it is, and it must be confronted. And however we can overcome it is what we need to do. So that's what I leave with you today. Don't ever let anyone take your pride away in this country, as much as we're flawed. And we will always be flawed because we are all humans. We need to not be guilt-tripped into what others think is bad. No, we are not bad. Are we flawed? Of course, we are all flawed. But the principles of what this country was built on does not necessarily need to be limited to this here, but we need to repair us as a people and as a society and as a country. I believe it is possible, as much as it doesn't look. Okay? It is a tall order, but if we don't have faith in ourselves, well, then it doesn't matter. We will never win, right? If we don't think we can do it, then we won't do it. So with that said, I hope you guys have a great day. If you made it this far, thank you to my diehard subscribers, man. Thanks, guys. It's hard making videos and getting 10 views on every damn view. For you new subscribers, thanks for stopping by. And if you are here just checking it out and you're not already a subscriber, please consider subscribing. And with that, let's find the stop button. That's the new tradition. And I'll see you later. Bye.